I know who he is.
This is just Bloomberg reporting on a customer that doesn't actually want to come forward. And I mean, you'd think if you're having problems withdrawing, you'd be like, "Hi, my name's Lala. I'm trying to withdraw some money." Like, he doesn't want to come forward and
He
tell
didn't
his
even
story.
deposit any funds. This is one of the accounts on Twitter that is sort of been spreading the Bitfinex FUD since about the summer. And we found that because he used the same name. That's how we saw him. We just did a search and his name came up, and he was already known to us because we've got a network of these accounts all drawn up in a text file. So initially the support staff didn't know that, but he hasn't even used Tether yet. He set up an account, went through the KYC process, but only did the minimum required, and then started emailing support saying like, well, where do you bank? Because if I'm going to make, put some money into this, I want to know I can get it out. And he was just asking sort of leading questions. And he mentioned Hawala in the support ticket, and it went through to like this junior person. So the junior person's like, oh, I don't know what to do with this. This looks scary because he's like mentioning Hawala. But he asked it like, I've heard that Tether's like a Hawala system. And so he kicks it upstairs, and that takes a bit of time. So it went like 2 weeks by. And so then he takes this transcript of this exchange with the support ticket desk, and he goes to Bloomberg and he spins it like, oh, I can't get $1 million out of Tether. So they come to us and basically say that. And it's like, well, no, that's bullshit. I mean, what are you talking about? Oh, well, I've got this customer who says he can't withdraw $1 million worth of Tether. It's like, well, no, who is this customer? We couldn't find any pending withdrawals. And no, he just created a support ticket asking if hypothetically, could he deposit $1 million flat? And if so, could he withdraw those tethers? And he hadn't set up the right KYC stuff. He'd only just sort of done the minimum.
Everybody to do with this Bitfinex guy?
Yeah, same thing. It's the same. Well, we don't know if it's the same person, but it's one of the Twitter accounts that's been retweeting him a lot and has been very engaged in that whole process.
They send me PMs like, "Hey, do you want to come on board with our Tether, competitor, Koala? We're doing it right, whatever." They're always shilling this fucking.
Wait, do they do that, or does someone else do that?
Somebody messaged me about it.
Yeah, that's a separate thing. I think they're just taking advantage of the situation. So King of Canaries, to be clear, he asked about depositing $1 million US, but then moved the questioning on to like, well, how would he needed to be able to withdraw the tethers. So that means that he hadn't even deposited the dollars yet, let alone withdrawn any tethers. And what the concern is at the moment is that the journalist is going to spin it like, oh, you can't get your tethers out. But he didn't get to that stage because he hadn't passed through all the KYC properly. I think he was just trying to get a list of the banks and stuff, because they know that if they put a spotlight on Bitfinex as a business, and the banks are going to get jittery, and wherever you put a spotlight in banking, you create costs. That's why I think they work with the banks. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, they came up at around the same time that the banking issues started, around March, April time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty disappointed they would lower their journalism standards so low as to,
Well, they're just there to sell advertising, right? And writing an article that says, oh, guy had a problem with his support ticket doesn't sell as many ads as, oh, there might be an insolvency crisis at $600-700 million, exchange over here. That's sensational. That's amazing. And it's what everyone's writing about. Like every journalist that the PR club contacted right now is writing something on Tether, because they're doing it's like MT Gox 2 and like it's all-time highs and spell the end of the bull trend. And it's amazing. It's very, very exciting. And I'm just trying to, I think what Bitfinex is trying to do is he's trying to create a market crash because he's sowing these seeds of fear in people's heads. And the thing about fear is it makes you worry about all kinds of things you don't need to worry about, right? It occupies the mind with redundant thoughts. And I think what he's hoping is that everyone just sort of imagines this impending doom so that if anything were to happen, anything at all, anything jittery, then you would go, oh shit, it's all true. It's all true. They are insolvent. Oh, well, sell everything, sell everything. I think that's what he's trying to create. And also these hacks and stuff, like there have been a couple of attempts at compromising us as individuals. There have been some sort of veiled threats of violence. I mean, nothing too serious, but just like sort of DM going to Drew saying, I hope you stay safe. And I got one, basically explaining that, you can hire people on the darknet to beat people up and that's a good way of getting passwords out of them. I know, just weird shit. Not like directly threatening, like we're going to come and kill you or we're going to come and beat you up, but just stuff that's like weird. And we noticed a few weeks ago that a lot of this stuff was timing up with tweets that were going out at the same time. I don't know for sure that it's the same person. I mean, Bitfinex may have no knowledge of it. It might just be opportunists coming in who has a grudge against, Phil or against Bitfinex who's just taking advantage of a situation. But I just felt like some of those tweets and that Jimmy, because I already knew about the tether hack. We knew about it 24 hours before when the team was writing the patch to freeze the coins. So when Jimmy was on air, I was like, was this all timed? And then right at the end, that guy comes in and goes, oh yeah, and they've just been hacked. And I was like, yeah, ding ding. And the New York Times article came out at just the right time as well for the hack. And he kept putting the article back. The New York Times article was supposed to come out like 2 days before, and he put it back twice. He set the deadline back, and then it just timed up really nicely with the hack as well.
It's too coincidental, isn't it? But tell us, Chris, do you have any updates on this audit progress? I mean,
yeah, I'm going to Giancarlo's tomorrow to go over the bank statements. I'm in the chat room now with the audit people. There's a couple more people have been assigned to it, and the tether one will be done first. The Bitfinex one is going to take a lot longer because they have to audit all the cryptos, and Finex lists a lot of cryptos. And for example, like with IOTA, you've got all the snapshots to take into account. There isn't a blockchain that you can just look up. You've got to download the snapshot and lay that out in a way that the auditors can understand it. But the hope is that the tether one will be done by year's end. And every day I'm like banging on the door, just going, what's blocking us today? What's blocking us? What's blocking us? What needs to be done? Because to be honest, like I don't work at Tether, but this shit should have been done already. Like, and the critics are winning because they make this outrageous claim that tethers aren't backed by anything. But of course, there's no way of falsifying that until the audit comes out. So the only real person you can look at is go to Tether. Well, where are the fucking audits, guys? Because you can't disprove this guy. And the burden of proof shouldn't be on Tether, really, in an ideal situation. I agree. But of course it is, because this guy's made it the burden of proof. He's shifted it. And to be fair, like it does say in their white paper that they have regular audits. So when I went through the white paper a couple of weeks ago, I was like, well, guys, come on. I mean, if you're going to say you have a regular audit, you've got to do this. And now that it's worth so much money, it's come under the spotlight. And right now, I think what he's trying to do, or what they are trying to do, is, like I said at the top of this conversation, they're trying to create so much of a spotlight that either regulators are forced to step in, or the banks just get cold feet and go, look, guys, we know how this works, but we know it's all FUD, but we just don't want to be involved in, a company that's got this much attention on it.
Yeah, it's not easy.
The other thing I learned is that there's a group apparently on TradingView, a group of whales that are working together to try and also take advantage of the FUD. They're spreading it in the cryptocurrency chat room, and somebody was in there, somebody that we knew, emailed the exchange and said that they're trying to crash the price. Basically, they're annoyed that Bitfinex is moving out of the US, their US customers. So just giving you a heads up on that as well.
Ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, hopefully once this is done, it'll be easy to do the next one, because tools will be in place and procedures will be in place. That'll be better. Secondly, it should just instantly silence all fudders, like instantaneously. Boom, gone. Like it's like dropping a bomb on them, like a nuclear bomb. And third thing is maybe then those fudders can start screaming about auditing Coinbase and Kraken instead.
Yeah.
Mimi, I think it is definitely a coordinated attack for sure. Too much stuff, too well timed, too coincidental. Too much of a BTC VIX found some program, right? I don't know if I told you about this, where it tells you how often somebody tweets. I think it's something like that Bitfinex guy is tweeting like 81 times an hour or something. Check his Twitter account, it'll be on there. Yeah, well, he's tweeting, we go, one tweet every 6 minutes. You know, if that is not a, coordinated fucking drive and effort, I just don't know what is. It's ridiculous. And Chris, who is this other guy? I don't know if you've seen this other guy. He's like trying to set up his own exchange, part of the Ethereum Foundation, just talking shit all the time. You seen that guy?
No.
Oh yeah, he's a real little bitch, this guy. Let's see if I can find him. He's such a little bitch.
Yeah, and
He
the other
looks like
thing I've noticed as well is we got Light Rider on Twitter who's saying that the burden of proof shouldn't really be on Tether. I did correct myself. I said, well, it is in their white paper, so they should have done it by now. What I mean is like this sense of urgency, like now, that the tethers aren't there, they're not backed by anything. That part is completely unsubstantiated, right? The part that the tethers aren't backed by anything right now is FUD in the sense that it creates fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So the burden of proof certainly is on Tether to do an audit, just to be clear. But this idea that they're not there, that doesn't exist, right? That's like, why are we assuming bad faith from the get-go? And certainly from Bitfinex's point of view, well, when you look at other exchanges like Coinbase, you look at Kraken, you say, well, they're all private businesses, and so they none of them have had audits. I think the reason it's becoming pressing now for them to have audits is partly because Bitfinex had the hack in August 16. And partly because they've grown so rapidly that they're now earning the kind of money that you would expect of a public company. And a public company, of course, does have to be audited, but private companies don't. And that's something I've tried to tell them internally as well, is that they need to stop thinking of themselves as a private company. They do need to think of themselves as a public company. You're asking people on the internet to send their capital over to you. I think it's like $1.5 billion worth of capital right now tied up with Bitfinex. So they absolutely should be producing audits, in my opinion. And I just think in an ideal world, like, before all this kicked off, let's say, there wasn't the burden of proof for people. If you just went around as calling an exchange insolvent, you would have been called a fudster. And the other thing you notice is that taking things out of context just makes it really difficult to speak about any of this stuff, because they'll take clips of recordings, like it'll take clips of this, I'm sure, and then it'll like cut it together in such a way that it sounds really, but then won't get the last part of the sentence. So now everyone just has to speak in sound bites. It's like the only thing social media is good for now is just telling people stories. It's absolutely nothing to do with the truth, because all you're doing is linking to other things that people said on social media. You're not actually ever like in real life. Yeah, it's complete manipulation. Like, I almost like have enough of it to the point of like, after I'm done with this, I'm just not going to use social media anymore.
I deleted my Facebook account ages ago.
Yeah, I don't use Facebook anymore, certainly. But there's just no way. It's almost like quite a nihilistic thing, because it almost makes you completely detached from the world, because you're checking the screens so often. Like the screen ends up looking at the world for you and ends up giving you your vision of the world. And all you see are people peddling agendas, jumping into tribes, sunk cost fallacies, like, you know, getting entrenched in a particular viewpoint, getting further entrenched in that viewpoint, not being able to back out of it, and then just supporting it, whether never actually reevaluating any of the information or the data that got them to that conclusion in the first place.
Ron Torosian said, we plan to release regular financial statements and are working with journalists who can review our finances as well.
Well, they won't. The thing is, though, if you want to spin a narrative like this company's insolvent, all you'll do is say that the auditors are corrupt as well. You'll just say that they're dodgy as fuck. I mean, unless you end up spending, you know, millions and millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars on one of the top 4 auditors, you see the spot. That's what I mean. The spotlight creates costs. That's the end game. Like if you look at this like a chessboard, basically he's trying to maneuver the pieces in such a way that the cost of doing business becomes so high, because he'll never be satisfied. He'll never be good enough. Doesn't matter who the auditors are, unless you've got one of the top 4 auditors in the world, they're dodgy as fuck, and anything they produce must be suspect. Like with the memo thing, when the memo thing came out, like the way that gets spun is that's not an audit. Well, okay, begs the question though. No one said it was an audit. It's a memo. It's a memo about an upcoming audit. But that's not an audit though. But there is an audit upcoming. It's just that's a memo about the audit, you see. But now, by saying that memo isn't an audit, he implies that it was called an audit. Or maybe someone did. Maybe somebody in here did. But I don't think Tether did. And so that's kind of what you're up against. And I just think it's safer just say nothing until you've got as many facts as possible, which is what I'm trying to do. And right now I don't. I do know how the hack happened, the Tether hack, but I don't know. I haven't looked through the books. You know, I spoke to one bank, and then tomorrow going to start going through the books. And I'm not going to sign an NDA with Tether either. So if I stay silent, it's because I choose to, not because they're telling me to.
Yeah, he got this image of Swapman saying, "Oh, we delete videos that are critical of Bitfinex and stuff like this," and this is Swapman just like trolling and joking. And he posted it. Oh my god!
No, he said critical of GP.
Yeah, you saw that one.
I don't think Phoenix needs to publish any audits, but Tether really should. I mean, transparency would just, I think the market would just take up if they do that.
Chris, question about auditors. What's stopping Bitfinex from being audited by Deloitte or KPMG?
I think they just won't really touch crypto companies at the moment. I just think that it was a case of, I think PGP mentioned it, it's not really something that they want to go near. And I also think there was a cost implication as well. I can ask again what the actual answer they were given, but I do think they were courting the top ones.
Chris, look at this guy. You must have seen this guy before.
Yeah, he's on the list of people. And also Preston Byrne, Isabella Kaminska as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Izzy's behind it. She always really had a thing for all this stuff.
I mean, this guy just looks like such a little cucked bitch. But all he does is just tweet fucking bullshit all day. All of his tweets, all of them. Just shocking images.
Yeah, but I mean, you do have to, from my point of view, this is how I think. Critics are one of your hardest working, stakeholders that you can have as a business. They work for you for free, tirelessly, and you really got to just turn this to your advantage. The part of the problem with this group is that they come across as insincere, right? That's the problem I think a lot of the critics of the critics have, is that they're not making a bona fide argument. They're just coming up with FUD. They get little bits of truth in there, but then they wrap up those little truths in big lies. And a lot of smart people who actually question things and critical thinking skills, those are the people that are sort of saying, well, who are you? You're behind this disposable identity, and you can throw this away anytime and walk away from it if you're wrong. Whereas a lot of the other people, the journalists that are writing the stories, Bitfinex itself, Tether itself, they can't walk away from their identities, right? So there's an asymmetry of power on both sides, because Tether and Bitfinex are well financed. They've got a lot of money at their disposal. They haven't had to do PR like this before, so that's kind of new to them. But they're not used to it. So there's asymmetries of warfare on both sides. And I would just urge you, I mean, the way I'm approaching it is I've just got to take this stuff at face value. I could get tied up with like, well, who is the guy who's paying him? Maybe he's being paid by Wells Fargo. Maybe it's a banking lobby. Maybe it's the state just looking for an excuse to step in after they took down, all the other kind of exchanges out there. But, oh, damn it, Bitfinex is like the last stalwart that's been around since the early days, and they can't get rid of it because, damn it, hasn't done anything illegal. So instead, we'll just make up some stuff, hopefully put a spotlight and give ourselves an excuse to, you could go around in circles with these types of conspiracy theories, but ultimately, all you can really do is address the points one by one that he raises and actually suggest to people, is there any evidence directly for this? There might be for this claim over here, but there isn't for this one here. And so be careful if he tries to back up this big lie with a little bit of truth over here, which actually isn't really relevant to the big picture.
Chris, you just touched on something interesting in terms of the anonymity. Surely there's a line that's crossed by an individual on social media that warrants you, through any form of defamity, to be able to approach Twitter and whatnot and legally find the identity of that individual and maybe stop them?
Yeah, you can do it on a defamation law. I'm not really a big fan of that. I think legal are exploring it, but I just think the problem is if you try to silence somebody and they have something to say, they shout louder. They'll set up another account somewhere else. They'll use more sock puppets. And like when that whole the hack was happening, just before it happened, there were a whole bunch of new accounts that sprouted up. And they started sort of tweeting about the moved coins, and then Bitfinex started retweeting them before it was announced. And that's when I first started to think, okay, maybe there's something going on, because if you've got a reputation with a particular legacy account that you have, you might not want to destroy that account, right? You might not want to be taken down. So you don't want to be associated with any hack that's going on. So maybe spin up some sock puppet ones, maybe take over some stolen accounts, some hacked accounts, start tweeting from those, and then just retweet them, because you can always say those retweets aren't endorsements. You can say those retweets, don't imply that I knew anything about this breach, because why would I know anything? I've got nothing to do with the breach, right? Separation of concerns. But again, like this is like arguing religion. You could go around all day debating what if. I think it's helpful to be open to the possibility that, these arguments don't appear to be bona fide or sincere. Like we could spend all day, every day arguing with insincere people who want to DDoS us with arguments that are not really relevant. So we have to pick our battles wisely, because we don't have all the time in the world. But in this case, he's forced himself to become relevant. Because, like I said, Tether hasn't had an audit. It did say that it was going to have regular audits in its white paper, so why hasn't it done it yet? And until that's answered, I don't think Tether has a lot that it can come back with, in my opinion. Like I said, don't work for Tether. I'm certainly not going to take a job there, but they should have done something about this sooner, and it's now coming to bite them. And until this is done, that's why I'm going to be on this every single day. I mean, certainly on the Bitfinex one, but I'll be overlooking the Tether numbers as well. And if I can be helpful to the community by way of like relaying what I'm seeing, then I will do that. But what I can't do is I can't look at a bunch of pieces of paper that have numbers on them and say, oh yeah, all the money's there, guys, because that's just a trap. Like, that's a trap. I could say that, but what if there's, a bunch of liabilities that I don't know about? I've actually got to speak to the auditors in real time. I can look at bank statements. I can go online. I can get Giancarlo to send me a wire, and I can confirm that that bank account is real. But the auditors ultimately are responsible for, going through all the whole balance sheet and making sure that, every last cent is accounted for. And until we get that, this story isn't going away.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I can try and be, is reasonable. Everyone wants to claim Oracle status. I love it. Light Rider. One guy on Twitter is just as powerful as the multi-billion-dollar exchange money printing company. Yeah, I didn't say that. I said there's an asymmetry of power on both sides. On the one hand, you have Bitfinex and Tether that are well-financed, lots of money, but don't have any experience in PR. On the other hand, you have someone with a disposable reputation that, if he turns out to be wrong, can just destroy his account and walk away from it. But none of these journalists that are getting involved, the exchange itself, will not easily be able to distance themselves from anything they say. But I love the misquoting. And keep it coming. Like, just put bullshit into my mouth that I put words into my mouth that I don't even know the word. Like, put French into my mouth. I don't even speak French. Pretend I said something French.
Nice price action on Phoenix.
Yeah, the funny thing about this whole tether thing is, like, the idea that if a clean audit comes out, that it'll all go away. And it's like, look at Bitfinex's Twitter account. You think that he cares if a clean audit comes out? He's beyond all in. Even if you got one of those, even if you got the most reputable auditor in the world to do it and it came back clean, he might close down his
He's
account.
already said that Friedman represent dodgy clients, so he won't be happy with it either. But actually,
I don't think he'll ever
I have
be
defended
happy.
him internally, and he might be surprised to hear it, but when I'm actually in the team meetings batting for his team, I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm saying, like, we actually need to go beyond the measure here. Like, we need to be whiter than white. Are you absolutely categorically sure that there isn't even a shred of truth to any of this stuff? And I really give them a hard time, and they're finding it very stressful. So, on the one hand, when I'm out in public, I might say one thing, but when I'm internally, it's not like I'm not busting their balls over it, because you have to like question everything. You have to, like, for a long time, I was like, why the fuck can't we just talk about the banks? Why can't we talk? Come on, someone speak straight to me. So in the end, I was like, well, give me the phone number. I want the cell number of the CEO of one of these banks. Like, let me talk to him and let me clear this up. And I did, and I spoke to one of them, and things are getting clearer to me. But I have to think carefully about what I'm going to say, because you say something and then you cause like a multi-million-dollar problem for somebody, a headache for somebody over here, over there. So until I have all the facts, I'm going to think carefully, because there's already somebody on Twitter that's completely misquoting what I'm saying. And so, like, just saying stuff that, sentences that I didn't even utter, let alone moving some of the words around.